Hello and welcome to this very special interview. Europe, we know, is one of the biggest epicenters of the coronavirus outbreak right now. From Italy to Spain, France, Germany and England, they've all registered well over 90,000 cases of the coronavirus. The entire continent is struggling, except for one country, Finland. The population of Finland is comparable to that of Italy, but the number of cases significantly lower. Finland has a little more than 3,000 cases and less than 65 deaths. Finland has largely kept the Wuhan virus under control, despite the fact that they received faulty supplies from China like a lot of other countries did. So what is it that is working for Finland? How do they see the coronavirus challenge? We are joined by the Foreign Minister of Finland, Mr. Pekka Haavisto. Hello, Mr. Haavisto. Good to have you on WION. As I said, European countries like Italy, France and Germany are among the worst hit. How is Finland coping?
Well, unfortunately, corona is also spreading in Finland, and we have recognized something like 3,000 cases. We are a country of 5 million people, so 3,000 is quite a lot. And unfortunately, we have around 60 people who have passed away due to the corona, and we have increased our capacity in our hospitals and so forth. And of course, we are one of those countries in Europe which are keeping the borders currently closed, and so it's really influencing people's everyday life. Actually, even the Helsinki district is now closed, so you cannot move from Helsinki, the capital, to other parts of the country.
Year after year, Finland is ranked #1 in the Global Happiness Index, and 2020 is no different. What is it like to be the world's happiest country in times of a pandemic?
Well, of course, if you ask today the Finnish people, we have just had our Easter holidays and everybody has been at the house or with the closest family and not moving or not traveling. I think you cannot really see the happiness too much in the country, but at the same time we are already looking what could be the exit strategy at this moment, and somehow looking also the positive outcome of this crisis. And while we are suffering, of course, the COVID-19 ourselves here, we are looking very much how our European sisters, our brothers are doing, but also how our friends in Asia, like in India, and how our friends in Africa and Latin America are doing. And I think this is a crisis that we really have to join our forces together, and there is not the possibility that a single country would win the coronavirus. We have to win it globally.
Finland is being called the best prepared of the Nordic countries. One report says that you never stopped stockpiling since the Second World War, always preparing for a disaster like this. Is this right? Was Finland always prepared for a pandemic of this proportion?
Well, to a certain extent, yes. We have this kind of legislation for this type of situations, and this legislation was passed very rapidly in the parliament, and parliament was very united, so no political troubles on responding to corona situation. And the second issue is also that, yes, we have a big piles of all kinds of material, mainly for the war situations and defense situations. But of course, it includes a lot of medical materials as well, which can be used in this kind of crisis. But I think one issue that we have not been so prepared is that when you want to have this cover on your mouth, and only a couple of countries are really producing these, countries like China, and we are in the same queue with many other countries to buy these products from China.
Medical supplies remain a huge challenge for most countries. Finland currently needs about 500,000 surgical masks per day, and the ones you bought from China were not hospital safe, according to reports. Did your government take it up with Beijing?
Well, actually, it's an issue that is currently under investigation, that what has exactly happened and so forth. It's also a little bit unclear if probably all the documents were correct and this were not meant originally for medical purposes. But this is something that we are currently investigating, and already the next planes from China have arrived, and we hope that material is good quality, and that is our estimation. And this has been, we can see that this has been a wider phenomenon during the corona crisis, that some medicines and some materials produced for this moment are not filling all the criteria.
China has said that countries should double-check the products that they buy and read instructions carefully. Is this a fair response at a time when governments across the world are struggling with supplies?
Well, I know that actually China has also improved their own legislation and customs norms regarding to medical materials and face masks and so forth, and that they can also do their own control at the airports. And of course, I think it's interest of the both countries in this case, both China and Finland, that materials and would fulfill those qualities that are required. But of course, we are happy that there are countries that produce at this moment such materials, and we are also looking actually currently how to start our own production. Some years ago, we also produced this kind of material in Finland, but no more. At the same time, we are starting production, for example, this face viziers, the plastic viziers for hospital use and so forth. So maybe this kind of moment of crisis also reminds each and every country and each and every region that you have to have some supplies for yourself, and you can maybe also need to produce these materials yourself.
Are we now witnessing the downside of globalization, of depending on one country for supplies? Will the world, post this pandemic, then look for alternatives to China?
Well, I think many countries are facing this, and this is a situation and a debate that is very much ongoing in Europe. I know that France, for example, is planning to start to produce themselves materials. We can see the US decision to force the automobile industry to produce the materials and respirators and so forth. I think this is going to that direction, that countries are looking more how they can fulfill their supplies and how they can protect their own citizens. And for example, in Finland, we have now the discussion that when could the schools reopen again? And of course, there again comes the question that you need to have probably enough protective material and face masks and so forth if you want to open the schools.
Do you think leaders across the globe should demand accountability from China?
Well, I have been thinking myself that if, let's say, it's not of course scientifically proven, but if, let's say, the source of coronavirus, COVID-19, is the wet markets and selling animals alive and even wild animals and these marketplaces, this is an enormous cost for such a trade. And why shouldn't we and wouldn't we globally develop something, an alternative to this? If it's a question of people's livelihoods, if it's a question of the food chain, I think it would be more profitable to have the good cold chains and fridges and electricity for those villages that are still pending on the wet markets and animal markets and so forth. And I think it's a global challenge. We should face it globally, but we should already think those steps that can be done globally. And I'm very much looking towards the UN and towards the WHO, World Health Organization, that they could make initiatives. What should and could be the steps to avoid the next pandemic? And also, I think the lesson learned from this is that we have, of course, seen SARS and we have seen Ebola and other diseases which are even more deadly diseases. And maybe the situation was so that this was not deadly enough, so to say, that this was spreading more easily and we didn't notice it. But that I think the lesson learned is that we should have been reacting at the very early stage globally when these news from Wuhan started to come around and so forth, when we still could isolate the virus and globally do something, action together. And I think this of course falls to the responsibility on each and every country to report at the early stage on these kind of phenomena, and then the international community, particularly the UN, to do common action.
And when we talk about timely response and timely alerts, we must perhaps begin with the country of origin. Did China delay disclosure? And there's been a lot of criticism of the WHO as well. Did they act in time, according to you?
Well, of course, I have been following very closely WHO recommendation, and I understand that these are very valid recommendations, how they have been advising countries how to act and how to react to the situation. And I know the head of the WHO, Mr. Tedros, as a very competent former Ethiopian foreign minister, and I think he has been leading the organization in a competent way at this moment. But of course, as you said, it's also a question of the member states at what time they are reporting to the WHO, and also how they would like the UN and WHO to act at this moment. And I think we should give all full support now to WHO at this moment, because we haven't seen the peak of this phenomena yet. And when I'm looking at the news from not only from Asia, but particularly at the moment from Africa and Latin America, I'm afraid that this can be a really, really disastrous disease in those areas where people have not been prepared themselves at all.
Many countries have extended the lockdown. France is among them. India too has extended the lockdown. Finland, I understand, is also mulling an extension. Are these restrictions proving to be effective? Are they working? New studies say that lockdowns only slow down the spread of the virus and, of course, slow down economies as well.
This is a philosophical debate we, of course, have every day also in the government, that what are the right steps to take and right things and decisions to implement. Therefore, that we have to have a balance between keeping the economy and keeping people alive through the economy, and at the same time trying to get down the very dangerous virus. And I think this kind of lockdown situation you can tolerate for some time, some weeks, but then life has to return more to the normal path. But of course, people have to maintain their I would say very controlled behavior, even if the lockdown period is over. Let's say if you allow kids to come back to the schools, and if you open factories and working places and so forth, people have to be careful, because what we are seeing is the possibility of the second wave of the corona epidemic, or the third wave, and so forth. And here I also want to reflect the situation, for example, in Africa, that even if in Europe we could win the virus, so to say, we cannot afford that it lives in other areas. So we have to join our forces, both on the medical side, but also and taking care of the victims of the disease, but also developing the vaccine together. And I think there are some very promising developments on the vaccine, but I think we have to invest more together on that.
The Bank of Finland has said that the country will slide into a recession due to this pandemic. Economies across the world, in fact, face similar challenges. Can there be a joint response to tackle this slide? Because you've been talking about a joint response to the problem.
Well, to a certain extent, of course, as European Union, we have our joint response to this situation, trying to look carefully also that there is not economies that are really falling in our own European Union. But at the same time, we have to take care of the global economy. And for example, currently we are discussing about the debt relief possibilities for the poorest countries, or postponing the payments for debts and so forth. And I know that the World Bank, the IMF are preparing this kind of concepts, and I think these are very important for the most vulnerable countries.
A Forbes report has a very interesting observation. What do countries with the best coronavirus responses have in common, it asks. The answer is women leaders. Iceland, Taiwan, Germany, New Zealand, Finland. This pandemic is revealing that women have what it takes to deal with tough situations. Your thoughts?
Well, I have to say that we really have in Finland a woman as a prime minister, and Madam Sanna Marin, she has been doing excellent work. And of course, there are always people who say that you should do more and you should do things more rapidly. But when you look actually the statistics of Finland, particularly the death statistics, it's very moderate at the moment. And we feel that we have been doing quite well in this situation and have been taking big responsibility of our citizens.
And I want to end with a question that I've asked a lot of thought leaders and world leaders I've spoken to post this outbreak. There's talk about how this is going to change the world. How do you think this lockdown and this pandemic will change the world?
Well, this will change the world in many ways. Of course, one that we see our everyday life is that we start to use more social media and internet and distance working, and we can even see that you can run a ministry so that people are mostly at home and not in the office like I I am today. But secondly, I hope that this will unite the world. We have a common problem. We recognize that we should have reacted more earlier and more effective together and so forth. And I hope that next time we will be better prepared for this.
Pekka, Haavisto, stay safe. Thank you very much for speaking with us. Good to have you on WION. Thanks.
Thank you.